Oh, it's not morning yet. Well, yeah, it is. It's 12:16 a.m. on Eastern Time. And I was just listening to Coast, and they were saying, talking about the moon and how it got to where it is, and that the Earth's core is too small for the planet. Whatever that means exactly, I didn't find out the details. But they said that the moon, the theory that where the moon came from, the latest theory, or maybe it was an old theory, was that it came about because of another body called Fayet, like Fayet, which is some goddess named after some goddess related to the moon. Anyway, I don't think I got that right, but I just wanted to use that as a title because Doe felt like the moon was put into place by the next level to be an observation. Well, he didn't call it a spacecraft, but he said for observation purposes. So I don't know what that means. If they land something on it, or there's something inside it, at the next level arranged to be able to better observe certain things about the Earth. But Doe didn't talk about having feelings about certain things lightly. Like, for instance, Kathy and I watched The Day the Earth Stood Still movie that was made in 2008. So it was a remake from the 1951 movie. And I hadn't seen the remake. I had seen the original even fairly recently. But this was done a lot differently, adding a lot more humanness to it. Some of which I didn't think was very well done, but some of the points in it were interesting. Like, for instance, the individual that came out of the spacecraft and was shot by the military as that woman scientist was reaching for his hand to greet him or shake hands and say hello. He had to get used to his vehicle, his body. That after he shed the outside layer of it, that was like a spacesuit. And that was interesting because of the way that the Next Level members came in vehicles, physical vehicles, that they were willing to discard in some of the crashes, like at Roswell and Aztec probably, and maybe some others like Paradise Valley and Laredo, and around that same period of time. And then there were some space alien facsimile events, spacecraft crashes, in order for them to try to steal the opportunity to confuse humans, which the Next Level knew was going to take place. Uh-oh. Oh no, I'm okay. Anyway, so he said as he was kind of awakening in his vehicle, and he was very clumsy, they handed him a glass of water. The Secretary of Defense of the United States, was played by Kathy Bates. She hands him a glass of water, or somebody does, and he can barely hold it. And as he's trying to bring it up to his mouth to drink, he says, "This body is very hard to use," or something like that. And I think that is true. I think that when Tian-Do expressed that when they came into their vehicles, not initially when their vehicles were what they said tagged at birth time by the next level, the way that a human might tag a deer or an antelope or something in order to track that vehicle. The next level did the same thing with the vehicles that their older members were going to take, and may have done the same thing with the vehicles that the student members were planning to take, which could have been at birth as well. It doesn't have to happen at birth, but maybe for certain circumstances it does. Anyway, so then when Tian-Do were growing up in their lives, the next level was observing them and, keeping them safe, the vehicles, and what Tian-Do said about them was that those vehicles that were tagged would not have survived if the next level hadn't tagged them. So I guess the next level, whatever they do to physically and or mentally tag those vehicles, actually also helps them physically and mentally survive. And then Tian-Do said that also that he left his next level vehicle in a closet. That's the words he used. He wasn't trying to be silly, but I mean it's that kind of rudimentary for the next level to do something like that, because they know they've made all these things and vehicles. They've generated them biologically and mentally, and all the facets of them, all the components of them have been constructed in a biological way, in a chemical way, in order to have a vehicle that a next level mind that had developed from previous times could use as a tool in their next level tasks. And that's why they took human vehicles in order to be able to communicate with humans on a human level, because if they had to bring their mind that's from the next level and that has been a part of the next level on laboratories, on spacecrafts. They're as big as planets, inside and out, or whatever they are. They've been there for, no amount of time that we can measure, because they don't have time the way that humans have time. It's not limited to cycles. They don't have cyclic life. They have life, continuous life. That's why they called it in the record books eternal life. Because it can be eternal, but it doesn't have to be eternal. It's always a free will choice to stay connected with the next level so that it would be eternal. And you can see what happens, if you believe it, that is, when you go against the next level and all of a sudden the eternal life ends. And you still may have life for a certain period of time. Your soul may still exist and have what you could consider to be life still, but if it continuously goes against the next level after every opportunity, well, it becomes harder and harder to recover from going against the next level with each opportunity. if that continues, then whoa, okay, almost missed that turn. Anyway, so if that continues the way you go against the next level, it gets harder and harder to recover, and eventually it becomes not recoverable because of your own choice. Our own choices make it unrecoverable because we no longer believe that even the next level even exists. And so we don't have that consciousness anymore. And so the only thing we can rely on then is what we can understand from the amount of next level information that we got in the past and our experiences, which of course all turns into kind of a fantasy. Especially when we lose the vehicle that we would have been wearing when we graduated into the next level. And I'm saying we, not because I am one of them. I don't know what this soul was a part of before in the past. It doesn't matter. But I'm just saying we, being any individual that receives next level information and takes advantage of it, and then because of their choices and goes against the next level, and the next level discontinues their close relationship with because they don't have any reason to be connected to anybody that doesn't want to be connected to them, and so they get more distant, and therefore the individuals that make those choices have less awareness are choosing to go against the next level. And I see I must have disconnected for a second there, so I don't know what I lost. Anyway, what I was getting to was that in this depiction of the Earth stood still, it was an incarnation, and the individual that was doing the task of determining whether the human species needed to be recycled or annihilated and started over again, that individual that was responsible for that task had to take a vehicle that would be like going through a birth. And that's how they depicted it, as if this individual was in like a placenta of this gooey kind of material that they ended up pulling off of this individual, and that left an individual that was humanoid, but was, I don't know if it was little, because they didn't really show that, but they showed the shape of him being a humanoid shape to this individual that would be considered either a next level vehicle that's in reverse metamorphosis, is what Doe said happened to Adam, or that individual was being born at that moment. That's the way they depicted it in the movie, that individual from this next level or alien race or whatever it was, because they did indicate that they were like a part of a number of civilizations that were surviving because of their sun dying, so it didn't sound like they were thought of as the creators of everything. So that's where, humans get off the track thinking that the space aliens actually designed the human kingdom, when what they did was influence the human kingdom to go against the next level. And so those individuals that were part of that heritage, which we all are, I guess, to some degree, but didn't recover from it because of the gravitation to the updates that came from Enoch and Moses and Elijah and Jesus, those individuals that didn't receive the updates in our genes and in our soul consciousness had the same kind of mind that the fallen angels had, that the Luciferians had, that the Watchers had, like Enoch's Watchers, which was a distorted next level mind, a diluted next level mind, a reduced next level mind, a partial next level mind, because they knew how the gardens grew, but they didn't recognize how far distant they were as minds from the growth that their older members had achieved. And so they thought that they could grow the garden themselves without the aid of their older members. They thought themselves as equivalent with their older members, or able to become equivalent with them without them, which is impossible. We can't become anything without our older members. We can't grow without our older members. Our older members give us the opportunities to grow. And it's like a dog cannot evolve into a human without the participation of a human domesticating them. And then their minds can be prepared to actually operate in the human kingdom to the liking of the human master. If the dog doesn't ever adjust and change its behavior when it gets lessons, then that human, if it's an evolved human, isn't really going to want that dog in their house. If they're not potty trained, if they're not behaving to where they're not threatening the baby or the other members of the family in some way, or they're not jumping on the furniture and trying to dig a hole through the couch or chew up the arms of the chairs, or if they're doing things like that, that owner, if they have any sense and care about their stuff, is going to not let them live in the house. And the same thing is with the next level. They're not going to let us live in their house on their spacecrafts if we don't abide by the minimum standard of their behavior and ways, which are above human behaviors and ways. There can't be competition, there can't be impatience, there can't be intolerance, there can't be ego battles, there can't be a desire for sensuality, favoritism. There can't be, this sense of, you got a task, how come I didn't get a task? You got a more special task than I got. Your task is better than mine. All that kind of stuff, that's all human. The next level doesn't have that. Everybody can grow as fast as they want to grow. And the next level older members will give them tasks that will challenge them. But everybody doesn't have the same skills. It's not the same for everybody. It's dependent on what we want. When we become even members of the next level, growth is dependent on what each individual wants to become. And the next level doesn't hold anybody back. But they also have high standards. So if somebody wants something, but they don't they're not able yet to come up to the standard that the next level needs to do certain tasks, then they're not gonna get those more significant tasks until they're able to demonstrate that they can perform those tasks in a way that the older members would be pleased with the way that they're performing those tasks. And that doesn't mean that they would be doing those tasks robotically, or they would be doing those tasks the same way an older member did them, because the older members are always judging things based on the current environment, the current challenges, the current arena, the current human kingdom and the way they're acting, or the way that the physical bodies are growing in some environment. And the older members are always looking to improve upon everything that's happening. So that when the younger members are given a task, there's a certain amount of the task that is a given that they have to come up to certain qualifications in the performance of, but then there are a lot of variables in how that is arrived at, and whether there's certain things, aspects that are going to change when the younger members that are performing the tasks recognize difficulties in performing the task, and if they have the chance to ask their older members ahead of time about, then they get new procedures potentially for doing certain things. Or if they're not able to ask ahead of time because of the way that the next level is structured, and they make choices, and if those choices aren't the choices that the older members would have made in that same new circumstance, that might be new to the younger members, but not new to the older members. But the younger members haven't grown to understand how to treat that circumstance, then the older members will correct the younger members and tell them what they would have done in that circumstance, and then the younger members will have that experience as a lesson on the next time they're faced with that similar circumstance. They would make the choice that their older member made, unless something changed and they weren't able to, and they checked again, or they weren't able to check again, so they tried to make the best decision they could make, and again, maybe got a lesson for it, or maybe the older member would say, well, you did it exactly the way I would have done it in that circumstance. And they get a growth from that as well, because they recognize that they're older members. So there's no stagnation in the next level. There's no static. There's no one way of doing everything all the time. There's no one judgment of everybody that is a final judgment, unless the older members determine, okay, now it's the final judgment. Like, for instance, nobody can judge. Like, I was asked a question earlier, yesterday, and I tried to answer it on my Facebook page. 3 questions, actually. So if you want to see the answers to that I wrote, it's on Sawyer Heaven's Gate at Facebook.com. However you actually get there. But I don't know if you can just put in that address and get there. I don't remember that. But anyway, I don't know what I was doing, if I actually answered those questions pertinent to what I'm talking about. I think I'm mixed up about that. I think it might have been in a dream or something that I had, to where I was talking to somebody and I was telling them, they were asking me about what there is to do now, and I was telling them that, what we do now is in whatever order it takes place is seek the truth about everything, about why this planet is here and why the human kingdom is here and what place we might have in it from the highest source we can imagine in the universe existing. And if that in our minds is like in the terminology of our Father in heaven, or Jehovah, or Krishna, or Buddha, whatever it is, thinking of them as a real person that's not necessarily the chief of chiefs, but it doesn't make any difference, as to us it's equivalent to the chief of chiefs. But if you want to ask the chief of chiefs that question, the next level will know that you don't know any better, that the chief of chiefs sent you individuals that could provide you with everything you need, and many, 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 many times more than everything you need, in the presence of those members that came from the next level for the current experiment that was actually through the Judeo-Christian Islamic framework of religions, Elohim, and then Jehovah, and then the Father in heaven, our Father who art in heaven, Heavenly Father, Father in the heavens, older member, parent in the heavens, nothing related. It's not related to gender, even though it was using that gender terminology. It's strictly related to an older member of the next level who had been in the next level for beyond our ability to count, and could take us through all our lessons. If we're asking that individual for service, we will be shown the opportunity to look at Tiando's information somehow, in some way. I mean, maybe not, okay, I shouldn't say that. Because Doe said that the third category of individuals that could be saved to go with him, which didn't mean immediately necessarily. It could have meant immediately in terms of human time frame, but it also meant during the time frame that they were still working with the planet, which they are still working with the planet now. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be talking about it now. They wouldn't give us the opportunity. They wouldn't leave all the information behind so that all we could do would be study it, and we couldn't apply it because there was no application that was going to be fruitful, because they would only be coming back in 1,000 years or 700 years or in centuries or whatever, the way that Mark and Sarah talked about it. And that's one of the reasons why I can't imagine they have much mind left from the next level, because they would say things like that. Tell people that on their website. On the website that's not theirs really, it's the website that the group left for them. And so I was discouraging somebody recently from asking questions at the website. And so that person mimicked it back to me, said, okay, so I shouldn't ask anybody, I shouldn't ask those webmasters any questions because I won't get accurate answers. And I responded to that by saying, no, I don't want you to not ask them questions. I want you to ask them questions if you want to ask them questions. I'm just telling you of the things that they have said and have been reported to me many times, of things that they have said that are not true. by many evidences, not just one evidence. It's not just my little opinion. It's throughout the audio tapes, throughout the videotapes, throughout the writings are not true. I could write a book on all the things that they have said are not true. Anyway, so that's the task, is whether we have it or not, whether we know it or not, whether we recognize it or not, the task is to seek the truth with our core. I mean, we have to really want to know. The next level doesn't really have much interest in giving extra help beyond what they give to the entire human kingdom to individuals that are just curious. I mean, curiosity is fine to get you started, because sometimes that's the best we can do. But the next level expects us all to grow beyond curiosity into application. Now, application means, I think, number one, learning everything we can about what the next level was teaching through Tian-Do. Not learning everything there was to learn about what Jesus taught, because that was for a previous grade in school. Not that it doesn't have application now. All the grades in school have application to now, but to graduate, which is the intention, and that doesn't mean suicide. To graduate means embracing the lessons that were being given now. And now that they left, the greatest lesson is to get their information out. And part of that will result in degrees of separating from our humanness. And another part of that is being willing to stand for Tian-Do as from the kingdom that created the earth and all its inhabitants. And also to maintain that stand, regardless of the consequences, until we actually leave our vehicles, by whatever means, by whatever way that takes place. And I'm not talking about suicide, because we need our vehicles to do these tasks, to pull on their mind, to comprehend their information after we read it, after we listen to it on the tapes, on the videotapes, on the audio tapes, read it in the book from the Beyond Human transcripts, read it in the book of the documents that the class members wrote on Do's behalf, on Tian-Do's behalf. Oh, I got to go back and get ice. So that's the task, and you can read about those parts of the task that I'm talking about in Junodi's document called Away Team from Deep Space Surfaces Before Departure. You might need to read it several times, because there's criteria there for different degrees of service and different degrees of growth. And part of our growth is not to judge other people's growth. not to judge other people's adherence to or application of the lessons. If we start doing that, then we're becoming like the religionists that then, say, oh, you're a sinner and you're not, or you're a worse sinner and you're not. And because it's none of our business who's missing the mark, who's missing the goals, and what goals they're missing, and to what degree they're missing them, and how fast they can actually change from that behavior if they have been missing the mark by the next level's determination. Because, is that place open? I thought this place was open 24 hours. Maybe that Shell space is open. Shell. No, they're not open. There's another one over there, Mobile. Looks like it might be open. They may have a rule that when somebody is right off the interstate, somebody has to remain open. Or in every city or something, or so I'll check with this Mobile station over here. They look like they are open. Yes, they do. There's a policeman there. And they look open, so I can get some ice here. I'll keep this going. Just gonna put it on pause for a second while I get ice. Okay, I'm back. If you all are still here. Okay, so I guess, yeah, so that's the task. And if anybody tells you that that task doesn't still exist, they're lying, or they don't know. They might not think they're lying, because they might not know. They don't know. And, you know, and I'm not sure, so that movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still, another thing in that was interesting was, of course, you know, the recycling was going to be happening because they said that the humans destroyed the Earth, were destroying the Earth. And see, that's the opposite of what's happening. That shows you the way the lower forces, they flip things to, you know, so they show some of the truth, but they don't know any better. And they certainly don't want to admit anything that would give credence to what the records say in the religions. You know, even though the religions are distorted and diluted, the space aliens don't want to let humans give them credit. So they always depict the religious as being ultra crazy in most of these science fiction movies and stuff. Even though they are, you know, but they're not completely crazy because they still believe that this planet was created. And that some of the records do reflect those creators' activity on this planet for a purpose, even though they don't necessarily understand the purpose. Anyway, but so, because what Doe said about the Earth was that any of the things that the humans have done to it to screw it up is something that the next level can repair. It's not that hard for the next level to repair all that. But it's the human kingdom that needs to be recycled. After the next level saves all the spirits and life forms that they want to save for a future opportunity. And they depicted that too. They had the spacecraft that came down in the movie was drawing to it all these different life forms. Now, I don't think, you know, so it was like a Noah's Ark kind of thing. Now, I don't know if Kathy thinks I should bring in what you think about it. I'll just bring it in so I can continue to stream for a few minutes anyway. Yeah, and so it'll take me a couple trips to do that. If you all want to hang in here a little bit. Hello. I have been streaming.
I know. I've been watching.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I just heard over there. Here's this thing if you want to. You don't have to do anything with it. I'll get it ready in a minute here. I got to bring in the rest of the stuff.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Rise above if you're still here. make him aware of that question you had. Make him aware of that question you had. That's a nice view of our ceiling there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You got to put some of your artwork
No.
on the ceiling.
Oh yeah, that is going to happen because I'm running out of room.
Because it won't stay up there.
No, it will stay up there. I think. Our tape is good. Okay. I'll start doing the defrosting stuff.
Oh, okay.
So you can.
I just got one bag of ice because I figured.
I think that's fine.
I figured it would be enough.
I think that's just fine.
All right, folks. Is anybody still there?
There's really only one question. And it's from Rise Above. And he asked, let's see. Don't show me. Can you share with us any knowledge Tiendo had that sounded sci-fi at the time, but turned out to be true? Careful how you're holding that. Pay attention. You don't.
Well, it's the part that turned out to be true that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. Well, there's a number of things actually.
Sorry.
Well, should I get that thing?
I'm not sure where it's at.
It's probably back here somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, all this stuff has to move.
Yeah, that's why.
Maybe I should use it tonight. No, it's not. Oh yeah, here it is, right here. Because I'm not going to be good at holding this up.
Yeah. There you go.
Greetings. Okay, so I remember something they said very early on in 1975 at a meeting in Laramie, which wasn't a public meeting. It was with the classroom, but it happened to be in a classroom in the University of Wyoming that they arranged for us to go to with about 100 individuals. And we sat in the classroom probably 3 or 4 times over the course of about a month, a couple of weeks or so, and or a month. And one of the things they said during those sessions that weren't recorded was that the next level had highways in the heavens. And the reason I'm saying that's true is because I believe humans have identified that they call them worm. Well, I'm not saying this is true exactly because I don't really know, but humans have said that there were wormholes, and in the movie or black holes they call them sometimes. Or maybe those are different terminology for different things. And then in the movie Contact, they talked about how, what's her name, the actress, Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster.
she had actually entered one of them and ended up someplace else, and how that seemed to be reflected in Bob Lazar's video that he made, that he got that information from a book that was called the Yellow Book, when he was taken to Area 51 to try to back engineer one of the crashed spacecraft. And he learned from that book, I believe, because Tian-Do had to study that material and everything Bob Lazar talked about, and he felt like some of the things that he talked about were accurate, or accurate enough, to be considered to be new information. Like we talked about human vehicles being containers for minds, and that a soul was a container for next level mind that was a container. And in that book, in that video that Bob Lazar made, he described transportation throughout the universe as not necessarily being linear based. So that you could have two different locations that from a linear perspective would be millions and millions or billions of light years away from a human perspective of time, and in a linear perspective of distance. But that with the waveforms, that he was saying, Bob Lazar was saying, the universe was made up of waveforms of energy, and scientists would call this dark energy. And that if you imagine that the universe was like a piece of, what do you call that paper that's crisscross lines on it? Graph paper. If you took a piece of graph paper and you folded it in such a way that it had curves, waves in it, and then you took the top of two of those waves and you put them together so they were very close together, even touching, that would form a way of transportation between one part of linear space to another part of linear space that would be a lot quicker than if you traversed along the surface of those waves, up and down, in order to get to that top point. So it's like two individuals coming to the top point could then, if it was touching, be like a wormhole to where you could get to the other side in a very short time, maybe even immediately, because maybe it would form a vacuum right there, like a wormhole they talk about as being like a vacuum, where they used to think that all space was a vacuum, but then they realized that it wasn't, and that there was a lot going on that they just couldn't see because we didn't have the right light spectrum to see. That's another thing that Tian-Do talked about early on, was that next level spacecrafts could be designed in such a way to where they can have like a core that is like a module that produces a certain amount of gravity within it, so that physical bodies that are equivalent to human bodies, in other words, they have a physical density to them that's similar to a human density, but not the same as flesh of a human, but could exist in that spacecraft while that spacecraft is defying all the G-forces by going at tremendous speeds or stopping on a dime and making a right angle turn. That if they didn't have that core inside that spacecraft, would basically explode all those life forms that are inside of it because of the G-forces. Okay, so that's been something that also science has determined that they understand more about. Now that Tiendo understood existed without knowing any of the sciences about that. Tiendo also knew that genes could change. Humans didn't know that. Because I've debated with people that went through school in the 1970s and went to college in the 1970s where they talk about genetics, where they taught that the genes can't change. That what you're born with, the chromosomes and everything, were going to be the same forever. And now scientists know that genes can change, and they can even change genes. Because they have now the CRISPR technology that can change genes. So Tiendo knew about that in the 80s, the 1980s, because they talked about it, and you can hear it on tapes, talking about changing your genes.
Autistic Vegan says hello, and Buttons and Rubbish says hello.
So those are just a few things that come to mind, and there's more. If you listen to the tapes, you'll probably hear a bunch of things in there.
Did you hear me?
He says what?
Autistic Vegan says hello.
Hello, Mr. Vegan.
And Buttons and Rubbish says you can.
Buttons and Rubbish. Hello to you as well.
Krell is here.
Krell.
Jeff was here.
Jeff, yes. Geoff, right? Yep. I recognize all those names as familiar faces.
And Rise Above.
Even though I can't see your literal faces, I can get your vibe. Not that I'm a big vibe reader, but I'm just being silly. But I do recognize. Who was the last person?
Rise Above.
Rise Above, yep.
And then Autistic Vegan asks, do you ever miss your classmates?
Not technically. I don't technically miss them. But I'm fond of them. You know, I feel like I love them in a platonic kind of love.
Why don't you miss them?
I don't miss them because what we'd miss, I think, would be our vehicle's experience with them. And my vehicle's experience with them was not a tiny percentage of the relationship that I had with them. The relationship I had with them was a mind relationship only, and a soul relationship, a relationship of the content of our souls thriving to be the same content of our other members. And so that's what we ended up having in common. Because we didn't spend any time at all talking, reminiscing, and getting to know each other's vehicles from the past and all that. I mean, we learned about one another by the things that one another would do. And the things that we would do in the classroom where we were striving to make only the things that our next level older members would do. And so we were trying to get rid of all our humanness in the beginning. And then the classroom changed into projecting all our teachings from the next level and our experiences, getting rid of the human behavior and ways and thinking is a big part of that. Ends up going out to the human kingdom to help influence humans to have a desire to learn those same lessons and learn to control our vehicles, to control their vehicles in the way that members of the classroom were trying to learn to control their vehicles. And that became our lesson step after we got rid of our human behavior. So in those ways, that's the relationship I formed with, as task member, crew members, fellow crew members. So I don't miss that because in a sense I still have that same relationship with them. To the degree that I am serving the next level, which I'm not judging what degree that is, okay? That doesn't matter. But they haven't gone. They haven't left. They're not dead. I don't believe for a second, or for a minute, or for, an inch, or whatever, that they're dead. That's impossible in my mind. Well, I shouldn't say impossible. That's not the right term to use for it. But I just know it, that they're not dead. And I can't prove that to somebody, but you can also learn to know that if you pull on Tiando's mind and study the materials.
Do you mean that you think their bodies are still walking around somewhere?
No, I don't think they have those human bodies anymore. I think they're in the grave, or they were cremated, or whatever was done to those vehicles that their parents and loved ones did with them. But they have new physical bodies. But their minds are, I believe, still have the memories of what they experienced in the classroom, even if it's not exactly, the day-by-day kind of things, because they fluff that off. You don't need to have that in the next level. What you need in the next level is what you grew to understand. But I think they recognize, because of their experiences in a human vehicle, they recognize what it takes to operate a human vehicle, and also to maintain a desire to want to know the truth and want to serve Tiando. And the difficulties that we all encounter, they understand those difficulties very well because of their experiences, not because of they've read it in a book somewhere. They went through experiences.
I hate to bring up Mark and Sarah, but earlier you said that the website was left for them, and I just wanted you to correct that.
Yeah, I did think I was correcting that, but I guess I didn't correct it 100% or all, because the website was left for everybody. But it was given, the account information was given to Mark and Sarah, Al Scody, and Rick Cody actually received the account information, and also the instructions on how to put updates on it, okay? So he was given the most responsibility in terms of the website. And then Mark and Sarah took over that responsibility, which was given them as a potential task to do by Doe, that they didn't have to choose to do it, but they did choose to do it, and they took that responsibility, and they've been maintaining that website. So it's not really theirs. It's the Next Level's website, because they also gave that website to people in Romania, in case something happened to the website in the States. They wanted that website to be able to still continue. And they also gave that website to Juan Odie, because they wanted it, they explained to him in a letter that they wanted it to be offshore, another place offshore from the United States, in case something happened to the website in the United States. And they had 3 websites actually, and Rick Cody had all 3 of them. And my understanding is that while Rick Cody was running one of those websites, Mark and Sarah started running another one. And I don't know too much about that, so I might be wrong about that. But,
sorry.
So it's not their website.
Right.
Even though they've been,
wanted you to clarify that
they've been the webmasters of it.
Right. Yeah. The website was not left for them.
Right.
It was left for the entire human kingdom.
Yes, it was. As was all the information.
Right. Autistic Vegan asks, do you think they miss you? Or is the Next Level mind so advanced that there is no such concept as missing someone in the Next Level?
I'm not going to say that there's no concept of missing someone, but there's a difference between missing a mind and missing a vehicle. Okay, now when T left, I think it's safe to say you could use that term, miss, for Doe. That he missed having T's physical presence with him in a vehicle, working on the same task. Okay, but I think it's also safe to say from audio tapes and from my personal experiences that Doe knew when T's mind was close to him, and actually even in the same room, and he felt it, and that he got great joy from feeling that. And so I don't think members of the next level that graduated miss me at all, my vehicle or my mind, because my mind really didn't offer anything to them, because my mind had its own lessons to learn. And now that doesn't mean that there's no part of me that I demonstrated working as a crew member in the next level that those former classmates don't appreciate. And in that sense, I think you're right, that they really don't have the concept of missing the way that humans might miss somebody. They're not lacking anything by not having me around.
That just made me think about the time that Doe was talking about that minds that were in the classroom had maybe left certain class members as they lost their minds and moved into other class members that came back into the class. So when you lost your mind when you left, because you felt like it was taken away from you.
I lost some of it. Well, yeah, Doe talked about...
Maybe Livodi was your mind.
Livodi? I wouldn't have been Livodi.
Not Livodi. Devodi.
Oh.
The last person
you're
that
saying...
joined the group.
Well...
I just had that thought.
Yes, I mean, what Kathy's referring to, which I had remembered, but I didn't remember it very clearly until Kathy was listening to a tape and told me about it, and I listened to it. I'm not sure we listened to it at the same time the first time or not. Doesn't really matter. But she reminded me of that concept, that idea that T and Doe talked about.
It was actually just Doe because T was already gone.
Right, that's right. I remember that. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because we like to be accurate as much as we can to where we heard things and when we heard things.
I think Wakenody had just come back to the class, and that's why he was talking about it.
Right, right. Because Wakenody had been in the classroom initially, right, for a period of time?
Yeah, and then she left to marry somebody? Or was that Windody?
Or was that Windody? It was
Yeah.
Windody I'm talking about.
Because he was asking her if she would mind if she wasn't, she was actually somebody else that had been in the class before. Did
Right,
that bother her?
right, right. And I think there was a time when they were talking about that
pretty
it kind of did bother me a little bit to think that I wasn't, like, let's say,
Me.
yeah, like I wasn't the person I thought I was, like I was attached to being, let's say, one way they talked about this that's, I think, pertinent is that they said that at one point they told us that we had all come from the next level. This was years after we joined. We were already living in houses. So it was in, I think, like 1982, because it started in the Black Hawk tapes. To where it wasn't the Black Hawk tapes, but it was that time period when Tiendo were living in Black Hawk, Colorado, at about 9,000 feet elevation. We had retreat there, to where we were living in Amarillo, Texas, or Dallas. I'm not sure which place we were living in at that time, but it was those two areas. And on weekends, a crew of 6 individuals, generally, would drive up to Black Hawk, Colorado, and spend the weekend with Tiendo. And Tiendo had 6 or so students actually living there with them in that house, taking care of all the needs of the house, because it was a big house. And so that Tiendo could focus on the classroom lesson plan and everything that was involved in that. And anyway, so one of the times, Pam Odie was one of the members that went up to that craft for a retreat. And during the little meetings that we would have while we were there were very personalized meetings with Tiendo. So they were very special because there was only 10 or 12 individuals there. You got to ask more questions, and those were recorded and sent back to the main craft so everybody could get a chance to glean the information that Tiendo gave. So during one of those sessions, during retreat, Pam already asked them a question about, does that mean that we are from the next level? Speaking about the students. And Tiendo said, well, I guess so. I guess it does mean that. And that began a number of meetings to where Tiendo talked about us being from the next level. Not the vehicles, but the minds, the souls that had come to take over vehicles to graduate into next level membership, into not into permanent next level membership or adult next level membership, to where we wouldn't need to come back to the human kingdom to incarnate into a human vehicle in order to learn more lessons in order to qualify for younger membership in the next level, to where we could have more significant service in the next level instead of being like a student member, which is what they determined. Some of us had come back from having some student membership in the next level. We're coming back to finish our lessons to become an adult member in the next level. Okay, so after that took place, then a little while after that, maybe a month, they said that's not totally accurate that we all came from the next level. And I remember how that was a letdown, in a sense. But at the same time, okay, fine, we didn't come from it, because I got a lift from being told that I came from the next level. It was like I was told that I was a honcho, which you are in a sense, but in another sense, the more true sense is that we don't live off of our laurels. So even if you came from the next level, if you didn't grow from that experience that you would demonstrate at the moment, then in a sense, you're actually saying that I'm not as great as I think I am. Because it's not what you were, it's what you are that counts. So then a little time passed off of that, and Tiendo said that at one point they said that everybody that came from the next level would go back to the next level. Okay? Even the dropouts.
The minds.
Right, the minds, the souls that dropped out of that human vehicle, taking it over. They didn't succeed in taking it over. And so Tiendo didn't know exactly what happened to them. Okay, didn't talk about it that I remember. What might have happened to them, those souls. Whether they were still hanging around, or whether the next level took them and put them on ice for future opportunity, or what. And then they said that it was possible that there was some sitting among us that didn't come from the next level, that were human vehicles that had gravitated to the information when it was given in 1975 and 6 and became part of the classroom, and that even if that was one of you sitting here among us, that's not a put down. In fact, it means that you were really growing well to have not been a returning soul that had graduated into a degree of next level student membership to be brought back to finish your lessons. That maybe you were a soul that was during the Jesus time, you never really had a relationship with Jesus directly, with the older member directly. And you were a soul that recognized Jesus as your older member, in whatever terminology they used then, because of the disciples sharing their experiences with Jesus, with you. And you believed in it. And because you believed in it, you wanted to be of service and do everything that the disciples told you must do. In order to, it's must do actually in a context of service. And what the task was that Jesus gave to everybody was spread the information. Make our information known to everybody on the planet.
Fishers of men.
Yeah, become fishers of men. And by doing that, you're working for the next level. And you're getting a certain amount of, you're getting lessons from that. It's not an easy chore because most of the world, and the religions especially, that formed before that, based on the Moses materials and based on the other religious materials and the anti-religious materials and the paranormal and everything that happened, basically are not going to see you as bringing updates. They're going to see you as off the track, crazy, lunatics, telling people that you need to leave your family behind, and in order to become my disciple, you need to give all your love to this guy called Jesus, and his father, who he says was around, exists somewhere, but is the same person as him. He's crazy. He's like schizophrenic. It talks about eating, their flesh and blood, and pretty lunatic things. And you're going to say that he is the return of the Messiah that Moses said was going to show up. So they hate you. And they think you're crazy and they want to get rid of you because you're interfering with their perspective of what being religious is and being associated with the kingdom of God is. And it's the same thing now, but it's in a different context now because society has evolved in certain ways and de-evolved in other ways. Gone backwards in some ways and stayed stagnant in some ways from growth, and in some ways has advanced. And the ways that society has advanced is apparent by any individuals that are gravitating to the behaviors and ways taught by the next level and making that their rule for life, whether they know about Tiando or not. And anyway, I won't get into that. So the concept of whether a soul, let's say Rick Odie, or let's say the example was of Wind Odie. Her vehicle was the daughter of the vehicle that was named Flex Odie in the classroom. And but Flex Odie, but Wind Odie didn't. She joined, I think, in 1975 from the meetings that were given, the first meetings that were given by T and Do in North Hollywood, California, in April, around April 7th, I think, of 1975. I don't know if that's the exact day. Maybe it was the 9th. Anyway.
Maybe it was April 2nd. No, I'm just kidding.
April 7th? Yeah, well, maybe it was. I don't want to just say 7 because 7 is such a popular number.
That's my birthday.
Oh yeah, you were April 7th. So maybe you were Wind Odie's soul, you know, and whatever. No, maybe you're my soul, you know, that came back, right? No, I don't think that's the case. I think my soul is still trying to work with this vehicle, you know, to whatever degree it can. I could be wrong about that, but the possibility exists that any of the souls of the dropouts, they failed in getting complete control of their vehicle to the degree that was necessary, according to the qualifications of the older members in the next level, T and Do. Do consciously they had to qualify for, because they were with him while he was in his vehicle. And T they had to qualify for when she was outside her vehicle as well as when she was in her vehicle. Okay? So T knew when she got outside that vehicle, there was no doubt about what a student still needed to learn. When Do might have not known entirely what a student needed to learn, entirely, that he could take to the bank, so to speak, until T clarified it in his mind. And the students themselves demonstrated their difficulty to him. That's when it became totally clear to Do, I think. I could be wrong in the way I'm describing that, because I can't judge Do's mind at all, really, except for the things that he said and did. And even then, it's a matter of some degree of interpretation on my part that I can be lacking. But I think that's a general way of looking at it that might have some accuracy. And so Wind Odie's soul that was with the vehicle that dropped away from the classroom and then married a policeman, and then even though she came back later, but before she came back into the classroom.
That's the ice in the fridge.
Yeah, right. Could have been, well, any of the souls that, let's say, didn't come back into the classroom, I think are better examples. Because there were some that left the classroom and then came back, like Rick Odie and Steel Odie and Dur Odie, and even though Dur Odie and Steel Odie didn't leave on their own volition, they were one of the 19. But then they ended up coming back into the classroom through unusual circumstances, and then Steel Odie ended up leaving again of his own volition, and then came back again of his own volition when he was given the opportunity some years later, and all of the big stories. But any souls that didn't come back, well, let's say Joel Odie or
Mark Odie and Seraph Odie.
Mark Odie and Seraph Odie might be in that category as well. And I didn't actually come back into the classroom, so I guess I could be in that category. And Carl Odie didn't make it back into the classroom, so he could be in that category. But anyway, so any of those souls could have, well, not Carl Odie, I don't think he would be in that group. But the ones that left the classroom before the 1994 public meetings that we did all over the country, that I was still in the classroom for, could have easily been souls that took vehicles that then joined the classroom from those 1994 meetings or thereafter. Like Kathy mentioned, I was going to call Kathy by an Odie name, but I didn't have it in my head, so.
Book Odie.
Book Odie. Yeah. Hister Odie.
That's funny.
That's funny. But anyway, so let's say one of those individuals that left the classroom early on that didn't, come back to the classroom, to repeat myself, and then, so during the lessons that were being, we were putting up posters and having meetings, and we were in the media and things in 1994. Some of those individuals, the vehicles, were also prepped by the next level to be a backup vehicle for a soul. We got in touch with the information, and it all made sense to them. Even though they were talking about even leaving the vehicles by their own hand, which isn't the lesson now, by the way. But at that time was still part of the lesson program to consider whether they were willing to do that. And so why would somebody that just barely joined the classroom and they were presented with the recognition that Doe and crew were the same souls that were in Jesus, the vehicle named Jesus, and those disciples, and they were back again, and that they were getting ready to leave after having been here for many years with Jesus' father, T, in a physical vehicle. And now all of a sudden, just from seeing a poster and going to a meeting, they felt like this was all for them, and they wanted to join. And so they were able to join, and Doe gave us instructions to let them be in a motel room aside from the motel room where we were renting or we were being given, because sometimes we were donated hotel rooms, and they could watch the Beyond Human series because they didn't even meet Doe for a while sometimes. And so they were getting to know Doe from the Beyond Human series, and if they lasted through that, continuing to go to other towns and hold meetings, and then maybe even got to meet Doe, because Doe rendezvoused with us in different places in the country as we were traveling around the country, and that those were souls that had dropped out before. I'm giving you the long story, semi-long story, to that idea that, and they even said that the next level might have designed it so that there were more vehicles that joined than there were souls to take those vehicles for the stage of growth that those souls needed in order to graduate to their next grade in school. So the next grade in school for those that graduated in 1997, as far as we know, from most of them, let's say, was some degree of next level adult membership. Okay? A vehicle, there could be different stratas of vehicles that have different capacities, even within the next level, so that beginning members of the next level get a vehicle that doesn't have the same kind of capacity as an older member of the next level's vehicle could have. Because a vehicle can have all kinds of different features and functions that it's like a human that has the ability of flying a spacecraft and also driving a car, when another vehicle only has the ability to drive a car. Yeah, because the vehicle wasn't taught and maybe doesn't even have an acclamation for what it takes to do certain tasks in the human kingdom. You know, certain skills certain humans have that other humans don't have. Is kind of a similarity to next level vehicles that have different capacities as well. And so there could have been multiple members of the classroom, vehicles, for one soul to take over. And that if one didn't work out, that soul would then just take over the other one, potentially. Until the classroom was over. And then if a soul didn't succeed in taking over a vehicle, like mine didn't, for whatever reason, doesn't really matter, then maybe that soul would say, okay, since Soyoti didn't go against us, let's try to take over that vehicle. And bring it to its next stage in development. Even though you can jump stages in the next level, and even in the human kingdom, you're not held back like humans hold people back. And they're climbing the corporate ladder or whatever. In the next level, you can grow as fast as you choose to grow by asking the next level to, give you the fastest growth opportunities they know that you can handle if you ask them for help along the way, because you're going to meet certain challenges and you don't want to set yourself up by thinking that you know it all already or that you've done a good job, because I was in that situation. This vehicle program, the soul that was trying to take over this vehicle now knows, and the vehicle now knows, that when T told me that there were certain lessons I had to learn in order to, I being the soul, had to learn to use this vehicle to understand and adapt to, I hadn't learned. And so T knew that. And so she put me to the test. And I wasn't able to pass the test because I was given
too many frequencies.
Well, I'm not going to say too many, because I still believe that you're not giving more than you can handle.
Yeah.
Because they don't set you up to fail. They never set you up to fail. But if we don't have enough of the mind that we've been given to bring it to the fore of our consciousness to then combat the challenges that we're given to face, those frequencies, that mind from the discarnate world or from the space aliens that are projecting those frequencies on us to remain human and to go against the next level, because those are all real attacks that we all get, then we're not going to rise to the occasion of accepting the help from our older members that they offer us. And Doe did offer me help on a number of occasions after I left even. And I didn't indicate that I wanted it. And so that's why I wasn't included in the former members receiving packets. I feel pretty certain about. I mean, had I wanted to stay connected, I think Doe would have sent me a packet as well. And because that's the way it works. I don't think that's not a mystery part of it. I don't think, but I could be wrong. Maybe there's something else in that I'm not seeing. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter at all. It's what you do each step of the way. So I for whatever it's worth, when they left, I recognized that I had to go public to whatever degree that would mean, regardless of how fearful I was about doing that, because that was my vehicle's fear of not wanting to be seen as a death cult member. And then my face was put on the front page of the New York Post as being, they called me a dropout from the death cult. So I guess, in a sense, that was, people would see that and they would say, well, this is a dropout from the death cult. So I guess he's a good guy, He saw through it or something. And then they later learned that I didn't see through it. I flunked the test, and I believed in everything they talked about, and so that kind of threw them for a loop. But they still ended up using me in a bunch of documentaries. So anyway, I think I probably beat that horse to death.
Piss says that's a nice shirt.
Yes, this was from I believe Alodi's artwork. I'm not sure when he did it. He might have been working on it while I was still in the classroom and I just didn't know about it.
So you want to clarify what that shirt is?
You mean talk about what's on it?
Talk about that it's for personal use only.
Oh yeah, it's for personal use only. We don't sell them, so we can't. If there is a copyright on it, which we don't believe there is,
There are only 2 made.
we can't be accused of it. Accused of copying it for the purpose of a copyright is to keep you from selling stuff, right? That's what the whole copyright law is all about. Of course, Mark and Sarah are taking that to a new level by
Let's not
being
talk about
like the Catholic Church and trying to hide the information, like the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Drinking coffee.
Yeah, I bought it this morning. Probably shouldn't be drinking it this late.
You shouldn't.
I'm going to stay up till 5 in the morning. Yeah, because
We always stay up till 5.
I know. That's why I think it doesn't matter.
I was wondering if we should do the tanks tonight
Yeah, we probably should.
and just get it out of the way. So
Well, I do want to take a shower.
Yeah, but we can go ahead and dump that tomorrow too. But we can go ahead and do like the whole flush thing,
Oh,
the
okay.
wand and stuff.
Tonight you want to do that? Huh? Okay.
Well, so we're not doing it tomorrow.
Yeah, it'd be better to do it.
And then we can still, flush them out too. It's just
All
all
right.
2 levers.
That's not too hard.
Yeah, just like we're defrosting the fridge now.
So, do you want to say anything about last tape? Or can you think of something else? Are there any new questions?
I don't see any.
All right. So you're playing it back on double speed, Rise Above? That means I'm talking like this. Well, if you can understand it at double speed, that's great. Do you think they miss you? Oh, right. Okay, we already saw that one. Okay, good.
Yeah, I think
Good.
there
So
are
I
some
guess
things
maybe we're
that-
done.
There are some things that Krill said. I don't know if you want to read them that I didn't, because it wasn't really a question. It was, but you might be interested in what they said. It was in relation to what you were talking about.
It's like virtue only. Okay, good. I'm glad to see one. It's like virtue. Jeez, the thing's falling down. Only exists if it was a choice to be that way. If you just had to do it, what is there to praise or overcome to grow? It sounds interesting, yeah. I think, well, yeah, by virtue, I think the way I would interpret what you're saying there in your use of terms, I would say that that's next level goodness. The only virtue in the human kingdom would be obtaining next level behaviors and ways. And that's next level goodness. And that's the norm for members of the next level. They're all good. Like Jesus said, none are good but my Father. Because he was in a human vehicle at the time. And so he was showing us that the standard of perfection is his Father's standard of goodness. None are good but my Father in heaven. Because even just being in the human kingdom, there's a degree of humanness that is not akin to the next level's quality of goodness.
Like original sin.
Like original sin. Well, yeah, I think so. Because, like, according to Doe, the original sin was that Adam wasn't happy with being alone and having a task for his own member. Mm-hmm. It was talked about as Elohim. He wanted to have a partner. And so a member of the next level would be totally happy to do a task for his older member without anybody being around ever. Because they would recognize how great it is to do a task for their older member. And that sounds kind of trivial, in human terms. But I can say that whenever I did a task with my older member, it was totally pleasing to be with him. And challenging too, because there was a certain amount of stress with it, but it wasn't the kind of stress that makes you feel like, am I doing something wrong now? Or, that kind of thing. But it's more the kind of stress of, I want to be, I just want to be. I just want to be with you. And be around you, And I think there was a part of it that for my vehicle was a little bit of an ego trip. It didn't happen that often, but there were a few times where he said, so you already want to come with me to do a task? And I said, sure. And he had me drive, I think. And we drove to the store. We both went into the store. And I don't know what we bought. Maybe I was in another world, in a sense. And we left the store and went back to the craft, the house. And we didn't talk about anything. It was pleasant. I mean, there was, I think he said a few things that were kind of like, I don't really remember what it was. But I just remember I felt like I was glowing. And when I went to the second meeting with them after I joined in 1975, the meeting was at Arapahoe Community College in Colorado. And it was all the individuals that had went to meetings that students gave around Colorado, all on the previous Sunday afternoon, that I was a part of one of them. But all the people that were in those meetings and wanted more information were given the location and date of this meeting at Arapahoe Community College, and they all went there, and they were all sitting. It was like a conference room, so it wasn't huge, but it was big enough to where you could probably fit 100 students, and they were all sitting in like these balcony kind of chairs, like, you know, in a stadium kind of setup. And then at the bottom, T&O had chairs, and they were sitting, and they asked us to sit there on the floor. It was a carpeted floor, and face them, I believe, and be their batteries. And I remember sitting there and just feeling like I was glowing. And I remember that was the second time I saw this aura around them and above them, like shimmering light. You know, that was not everywhere in the room. But it was what I saw also in the first meeting I attended in Wallport, Oregon. Maybe a month before that. Anyway, so I just felt like I was glowing, yes. And it wasn't the last time that I felt that. And in that time, there was no ego about it, because I wasn't aware of anybody else sitting next to me, or like other students that were sitting next to me, because there were a bunch of students sitting in front of him. But I related it to a meditation they gave us years later of feel what it feels like to be sitting in front of the older member or the chief of chiefs. What would you be feeling when you were sitting, and trying to imagine what that would be like. And I think the closest that we can probably get to it now, well, no, I shouldn't say the closest, because I think I've experienced, I could be wrong, but I can feel it from Kathy sometimes when she's just listened to a tape or talking about it, what's on a tape. I feel like she's glowing, and I think we can all experience that. Yeah, we can meditate on T&O's mind, coming through the top of our head, through our pineal gland, and going through our entire body and healing all the cells of the body as it goes through our body. And any ailments that we have physically or mentally, we can feel it going through and healing all that. That's a way of also feeling the next level's mind coming through us in a real way. That's not an imaginary way. I mean, we're imagining it, but it's not imaginary. It's real. It's more real than everything else. And if we can do that, we can perhaps we can heal anything happening in our bodies. I say perhaps because there might be some things that it would take a lot more effort for the vehicle to be healed from. But I don't know. I don't think that anything's impossible when it comes to the next level. So I shouldn't say that everything can't be healed. I don't know.
Rise Above says, it's been a fantastic live. I think you have a purpose here. Carlotti and others maybe with getting information out. That is why you didn't exit. Just a thought.
Well, I can understand individuals saying that, and I think, yes, there is a purpose here for everybody, that, especially that has had experiences with T&O. There's no doubt about it that that's a tremendous gift to have received, and I think it you know, it's a blessing for sure, but we have to also recognize that if it wasn't necessary for me to leave the classroom, for the next level to have somebody present this information or give this information to people. They could, like Jesus talked about that as well, that like if there weren't enough workers in the fields, then the next level could raise up workers from the dust of the earth. In other words, from the human kingdom, there would be individuals that would provide, and that might be any of the former members that had experiences with Tian-Do. There was hundreds that have had some contact with Tian-Do. And even if you didn't have contact with Tian-Do, you might have somebody that listened to the tape so many times that they knew so many of the things that they talked about. And the next level gave them help to understand those things, or to bring them. Or that the next level would, that somebody could be sitting here saying the ABCs. You know, and the next level would be helping individuals recognize that they were giving them some of the mind from the next level. Or that they'd be playing tapes. You know, maybe the next level would have, if there was nobody here that was with the classroom at the time, maybe the next level would have had individuals, instead of just having Rick Cody get some of those tapes, maybe they would have helped that happen in a different way to where all the tapes would have been available right away, and they would have been being played on all different kinds of social media sites, so that everybody could have access to exactly what they were saying the whole time.
There was no social media back then.
Well, whatever it was, they had bulletin board services.
Yeah.
And they did have beginning internet services.
So Ziggy Stardust, which I asked them to clarify, because they said, first, do you think new batches of people are being contacted by TILA? So I asked them to clarify what they meant by TILA, if they meant, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then so they clarified and they said, I mean the older members Tian-Do. Do you think that more people at this particular time may be finding themselves reconnecting with them through indirect and or direct means?
Well, I think absolutely they are connecting. People are connecting with Tian-Do directly and indirectly as we speak. I mean, nobody is limited. I know of a number of individuals that are spreading the information and have been doing so for many years.
And by saying spreading the information, he doesn't mean spreading illegally copyrighted information that Mark and Sarah copyrighted. He means just spreading what the next level is, what Tian-Do taught about, not anything copyrighted by Mark and Sarah King. Just to clarify that for the attorneys who spy on our...
Yeah, and what they do is then they select one thing we said that then they can imply meant this and this and this and this. And even though what they imply doesn't have any accuracy to it most of the time, just by saying it puts it in the court record. And that if I don't respond to it, or Kathy doesn't respond to it, because Kathy is being sued by them also, or if Carl Erdy doesn't respond to it because he's being sued also, then they assume it's true. So we have to respond to everything they say, accuse us of, otherwise it's considered to be true. And they even say that in the court documents that they write, that if they don't respond, then it's assumed to be true, kind of thing. And that's the way the system is set up. And it makes it so cumbersome and so open for deceit and manipulation. It's almost unbelievable what we have to go through in order to try to keep everything accurate and true and real. And
they try to make us out to be bad people because we want to tell people about Tian-Do and the next level. Like that's something really wrong that we're doing.
Right. They try to make it seem like it's extremely dangerous and people are going to commit suicide if they hear anything more about the next level than what they have provided on the website.
They haven't even provided that.
But, well,
Like, you need to be really clear about that. Mark and Sarah had absolutely nothing to do with any of the content that is on the website.
that's right.
They had nothing to do with it.
Right. That they're the webmasters.
They just keep it
We're
up
paying
front.
for that to be
They
there.
just pay the bills.
Right. Which I'm not, diminishing their task.
No, not at all. But
If I had it my way,
don't want to imply that they have anything to do with the creation of that website.
the way this could have happened is when Mark and Sarah got the letter on the 25th that talked about the storage contents and the cars and the truck and the location of them and the desire to get Rick Odie to get the truck.
Guess I should do.
They could have communicated that to Rick Odie on the 25th because Rick Odie called them on the 25th to talk about the letters he received. They could have communicated
They
that
hadn't
right
even
away.
opened theirs yet.
I know, but they could have, that
According to
night,
them.
2 a.m, they could have called Rick Odie back and said, we looked at the letter, we finally read the letters, and it said this and this and this and this and this. So we need to go to San Diego to get the contents of storage so that the authorities don't get that material. But they didn't say that to Rick Odie. So Rick Odie didn't know. But he went to Phoenix anyway, because he was in Denver at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so he went to Phoenix anyway, feeling like he had to do something. And then when he got there and he called Mark and Sarah again, they didn't tell him anything about the content of those letters. So him and Ascoti, they didn't even tell Ascoti about the content of those letters. Or Ascoti didn't realize what the content was fully, or didn't register what the content was because he didn't tell Rick Odie about it. And then so that Rick Odie and Ascoti both ended up driving to San Diego on the 26th when they found out right before they got to the mansion that the media was saying that they had found the bodies. And so they didn't know what to do at that point, but they knew that it wouldn't be a good idea to go to that mansion. And so they turned around, went to a hotel, and contacted Mark and Sarah, and still they didn't tell them about what the content of that letter was to them. And, but, so they ended up going to storage at that point.
No, they didn't. They came back to Phoenix.
That's right, and then they went, that's right, they came back to Phoenix, and then it was early morning of the 27th that Mark and Sarah arranged to meet in a parking lot, and they sat in Mark and Sarah's car. I'm not sure if Sarah was there, but I know Mark was there. I don't remember now, because we have this from Rick Odie's manuscript, the details of this, and that Carlotti verifies because Rick Odie explained it to Carlotti. So it's not like it's just from one source that was potentially tainted. We have witness to it as well. And then that's when, in those early morning hours, Mark and Sarah gave them the letters, like 6 letters or 6 pages of letters. Maybe it was 4 letters. I don't remember now. The Purser letter was a couple pages, I think. The letter to Rick Odie and Sarah Odie was 2 pages or 3 pages. And then maybe there was another one. I'm not sure now exactly. But, and they gave them keys and they gave them codes because those codes were in the letters, some of the letters, and instructions on what to do. And by that time, so Rick Odie and Ascoti then flew to the airport in San Diego, where some of the cars were told to be parked by the letters. and they got 2 of the cars, and they left the airport, and they went to storage with one of the cars, and they opened the storage room, and the tapes were right up front. And they took some of the tapes, and then, according to Peabody, Riccoti was spooked and decided to leave. And Ascoti left with the tapes that they got, which wasn't everything, and then divided those tapes with Ascoti in the other car, and then Ascoti went back to Phoenix, and Riccoti went to Denver with half the tapes, approximately. Okay, so that started the process.
Half the tapes. It would have been.
It was a little less than half the tapes.
Yeah.
If there were 486 tapes, which there weren't, because some of them were missing. Or if they were there, they had nothing on them that could be readable or understandable. But some of them said missing tape.
There's 1,082 tapes.
Right, but I think there's really only 1,061, but I could be wrong about that.
Right, that's what Mark said.
Yeah. But whatever it is, there's over 1,000 for sure that are that we don't have all of. Anyway, so at that point, then it was a whole nother ballgame. Because then San Diego came and put locks on the doors of the storage rooms, so that when Ascoti went back there the next day, I believe, I guess would have been the 28th, the locks were on the storage room. And so they couldn't get anything else out of storage. And then Riccoti immediately started copying the tapes and the videotapes, because he was given instructions to copy the videotapes, and he wanted them to be distributed, and he offered Mark and Sarah the opportunity to be the distributor of those tapes, and they didn't want to do anything, have anything to do with it. And they were at that time afraid of what was going on, that they were going to be implemented in the way that the class left and everything, and because they had a P.O. box that was on the website, and they wanted Riccoti to change the website because he knew how to change the code, and he had the relationship with Chris and Holly primarily that Joe gave him with the account information. But they were being bombarded on the website, and so the website was down, so Riccoti couldn't get that changed right away. But that's what was on Mark and Sarah's mind initially. And the letter that they were supposed to send to the landlord, that they wanted to take their legal names off of, to not be implicated in what the class did, which, I don't know. In other words, it didn't have to go the way that it went. But it did go that way. And so if the next level had wanted to, they could have saw to it that they got all those tapes. And that Riccoti had them all, and Ascoti had them all, and Mark and Sarah also, they all had them. And they decided to divide them among those that wanted to disseminate the information. And they could have divided them physically among everybody. And then they could have also decided to digitize them all, and so that everybody would have all those, and that they would take those all and they would give them to people that wanted them. And there wouldn't have been, they could have made a copyright out of them, but they could have made it the same copyright that Doe gave us the example of in the book, which is a common law copyright that said you could copy parts of or all of those materials, as long as it wasn't for commercial purposes or for the purpose of profit making. And they could have done that. They could have even charged a little something for things, because it wouldn't have been for the purpose. The charge wouldn't have been for the purpose of profit. It would have been for the purpose of being able to distribute that information, like Doe talked about, with the items of value and retrieving funds from those items of value from the storage materials that included the tapes in order to support the living expenses of the students that were choosing, or anybody that was choosing to disseminate the information in the dissemination project. That's the core of what could have happened. And in that sense, then everybody now would be having those tapes to listen to. And so you wouldn't need a person like me to really be saying anything.
All right, babe, you want to wrap it up?
But the next level takes advantage of everything. So they're taking advantage of those that want to disseminate the information. And that includes Carl Odie, Juan Odie, Soy Odie, this vehicle, me, and Kathy, and anybody else. There's a guy named Hercules that's been out there sharing information, and I don't know where he is or what his real name is. I don't know anything about him, hardly, except I've been in touch with him for many years using that handle, and I don't know if there's 100 people with that handle, but anyway, so we do the best we can. You know, I mean, and that's determined by T&O, not by me, because there is no best you can with T&O. You try to do what's before you, what's given to you to do. Getting the information out, that's what's important, most important right now. Because, I mean, we can go into a cave and think that, you know, we're giving all our love to the next level by whatever demonstration of that, which is fine, but then the next level, we're not being of service to the next level in the kind of service that they actually gave us to do. It doesn't mean that the next level won't smile upon us for wanting to adopt all their behaviors and ways, but it's not up to us to determine what the tasks are. And it's very clear what the task is, to get their information out. So, good luck. Learn it, I suggest. And you don't have to know it all. In fact, you don't have to know hardly anything to start sharing with people the truth. Good night. Kathy, you going to say good night? Good night.